Hello, I present to your attention an analysis of the new moon which will be on 27 April 2025. What features are there in the horoscope of this new moon? What are the projections of the planets and where are they projected for the next lunar month? An article on this topic has already been written, but first, let's take a little look at the chart for the new moon. Here the chart is built for Helsinki, but this is not so important as I will not be considering the positions of the planets in the houses. Several points draw attention to themselves and they will be given the most attention in astrocartographic maps. This is the position of Mars and Pluto, which has been ongoing since November 2024. It is now diverging, fortunately, but in the next lunar month it will still be felt. The second important point is the cluster of planets on the Pisces-Aries border. Neptune has entered Aries, and at the end of Pisces are Rahu, Saturn, and Venus. According to my client's feedback and my observations, this Saturn brings quite serious troubles. Therefore, the joint projection of Rahu, Saturn, Venus, and Neptune will be considered tense. Venus, moreover, has fallen into the midpoint between Neptune and Saturn, being squeezed between these two planets, so the favorable influence from Venus will be minimal. The new moon point has fallen into the 8th degree of Taurus. This is an interesting place connected with the star Hamal, which is not very favorable, to put it mildly. It can be added that the 8th degree of Taurus corresponds to the 8th degree of eastern longitude approximately. And this is the longitude of Moscow and the longitude, for example, of such a Kenyan city as Nairobi, the capital of Kenya. How this will manifest, we will observe. Forecast of emergencies. But most of all, the tension in this horoscope seems to come from the elements of fire and earth, to a lesser extent from water and air. Therefore, emergencies may concern the topics of fires, explosions, terrorist attacks, industrial accidents, as well as volcanic activity or earthquakes. The projection of Mars and Pluto is a universal tension in the form of conflict, accidents, increased military and criminal activity, as well as natural anomalous phenomena. The joint projections of Saturn, Rahu, Venus, and Neptune. These are accidents and problems due to rain, fog, poor visibility. Harmful emissions into the environment are likely in these areas, as well as floods, accidents in the chemical industry. Europe. I will first draw attention to the projection of Mars and Pluto. It passes very precisely through the capital of Iceland, Reykjavik, a seismically dangerous country with an abundance of volcanoes and geysers, so in the next lunar month, in May 2025, it may be hot in Iceland in both the literal and figurative sense. The projections of the luminaries pass through Portugal, the United Kingdom, Norway, creating a negative, moderately tense environment, possible worsening of the weather. The projection of Uranus looks more interesting. It passes exactly through Italy, through Rome. As is known, a conclave will be held in Rome in the Vatican, the election of a new pope. Uranus may indicate an unexpected decision. The projection of Uranus also passes through the capital of Croatia, Zagreb, significantly affecting Slovakia, Poland, and the Baltic states, especially Lithuania. In Russia, the projection of Uranus affects the area of St. Petersburg, and the northwest, for example, the city of Arkhangelsk, is also affected by this projection. The joint projection of Saturn, Venus, Neptune, and also Rahu, which is not marked but is located here, again affects St. Petersburg, indicating this city for the second time, as well as Smolensk, Kyiv, the central part of Ukraine. Moldova, Chisinau, and Turkey. Turkey is quite strongly affected. An interesting situation is developing around Israel. On the one hand, especially from the side of Egypt, this country is affected by tense projections. Neptune, Saturn, but from the side of Syria, a favorable projection of Jupiter approaches Israel. It seems that in the next lunar month, some respite is possible in this area. A decrease in military activity. The next month also looks favorable for the Caucasus. Almost the entire Caucasus is covered by the projection of Jupiter, the Chechen Republic. The city of Orenburg falls into this projection. The tense projection of the luminaries passes through Vorkuta, through central Kazakhstan, significantly affecting Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Here we need to smoothly transition to astrocartography for Asia. This projection of the luminaries, which I mentioned, affects Pakistan. Neighboring India is strongly affected by the projections of Mars and Pluto, which pass near the capital of India, Uranus passes through India in the east. All this together indicates that the conflict that began last month between Pakistan and India, which resulted in a shootout in the Kashmir region in this area, in the next lunar month, in May, the situation here may escalate. Unfortunately, it can be noted that the areas of Nepal, the Himalayas in this region, are also under strong tension. Tourism in these areas at this time is extremely dangerous. The projection of Uranus affects cities such as Tomsk, Novosibirsk, possible worsening of the weather, as well as increased accident rates. Let's trace the projection of Mars and Pluto a little further. We see that the entire area to the west of Baikal, Irkutsk, Bratsk, Ust-Ilimsk, this entire zone is covered by the projections of Mars and Pluto, which create increased accident rates, increased conflict even at the household level among people. This can be noted. Yes, at this time the fire hazard in these areas also increases. This also applies to Mongolia. But the favorable projection of Jupiter affects another part of Baikal, the eastern part of Baikal, Buryatia, Ulan-Ude is affected here, the central part of China, partially Vietnam. These areas are favorable for tourism and travel. In the Far East, tension can be noted in China, in the area where it borders North Korea. The luminaries create some tension in the Far East of Russia and in Japan. In the Kuril Islands zone, there is tension from the planet Uranus. From Mars and Pluto, so seismic activity and the awakening of volcanoes are possible here. An interesting situation is developing in the Philippines area. On the one hand, there are tense aspects of Saturn-Neptune, but there is also Venus passing nearby with Manila. I happen to come across information that one of the candidates for the post of Roman Pope has Filipino origins. This Venus gives him some chances for victory. Africa. I immediately draw attention to the fact that in the area of the Cape Verde Islands and the Canary Islands, tense projections in the next month make these places not the best for tourism. Possible strong winds or rains, increase conflict among people. The projection of Uranus, which leaves Italy, crosses the African continent here. It especially affects Tunisia, its capital. It affects Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Ghana. These countries may be marked by protest activity and increased likelihood of road traffic accidents and industrial accidents. The projection of Saturn and Neptune, which partially affects Israel, then moves to the African continent. It passes exactly through Egypt. Cairo is in the embrace of Saturn in the next lunar month. Holidays in Egypt can be very dangerous in some places. But in those parts of Egypt that border the Red Sea, as well as in the western part of Egypt, the situation looks much better, thanks to the projections of Venus and Jupiter. As for Sudan, Uganda, Zambia, the situation looks tense here next month. Yes, we can note the favorable influence of Jupiter in eastern Turkey. In this place, rest will be favorable in the next lunar month, North America. The projection of Pluto and Mars is unlikely to cause significant harm to sushi, but it is projected onto the ocean near this continent. Strong tension arises only in Alaska, sparsely populated, but nevertheless these areas are seismically dangerous. The projections of the luminaries create tension in the area of Los Angeles, Nevada, and in Canada in the province of Alberta. The projection of Uranus creates tension in Texas, affecting Houston, Dallas, as well as a large city like Winnipeg. Storms are possible here. Damage from strong winds and lightning is likely. The same Uranus affects the coast of Mexico in this region. The projection of Jupiter creates a more optimistic environment in Canada in the area of Montreal, as well as in the eastern USA, slightly to the right east of New York. South America. Well, here it is probably better to start with the favorable projection of Jupiter, as it generously covers many countries. Venezuela, partially Colombia, partially Peru, Jupiter affects them very strongly. Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. In these areas, the astrological weather will be ideal for travel in May. Saturn and Neptune will create some tension in Argentina, Paraguay, and also in Guyana. The area around the southern part of South America looks noticeably tense. Here, if I am not mistaken, is the famous Cape Horn, which is known for strong storms. Next month, this place looks dangerous for ships. Australia. Well, strong tension can be immediately noted to the west of Australia. New Zealand is significantly affected by the luminaries. Uranus passes nearby. The projection of Mars and Pluto jointly passes through the Solomon Islands or New Caledonia. In general, this entire region, which is known for the formation of cyclones that then move towards Australia, is activated this month. There may simply be strong storms here. The projection of Jupiter passes near the capital of Indonesia, Jakarta, but not all of Indonesia will be favorable next month. Here in the Bali area, the 10th projection of Saturn is already involved. Malaysia, the island of Borneo, will be favorable next month. This small projection of Chiron passes near the capital of Australia. This is quite unexpected, as Australia does not play a significant role in world diplomacy. But next month, Chiron, which according to my observations favors diplomatic efforts, will pass near Australia, possibly on the territory of this country or at the initiative of this country. Some negotiations will be initiated.